Today, a cooking challenge video with a slight difference. I'm in Spain. So I'm in southern Spain, and this is my mum's kitchen. I've not tried doing one of these cooking challenge videos out in Spain. I have looked at prices in shops and I think it's feasible. So anyway, today we're going to go to COSTTO, which is a kind of warehouse style cash and carry supermarket, and buy 8 different things, notionally cheap-ish things, not necessarily the cheapest things, but 8 different things, and then come back and try to make 3 dishes out of it. So rules and parameters are going to be pretty much the usual things. I've got to buy 8 different things. They've got to be cheap-ish items and different from each other. We'll have the usual allowances: water, salt, pepper, 1 herb, 1 spice, 1 sauce, 1 tablespoonful of oil. So those are the parameters on screen in case I've forgotten some detail. Let's go shopping. So this is my first time doing a cooking challenge on camera in Spain. There's a choice of different supermarkets where we could go, and maybe we'll try some of the others in a future episode, but today we're off to COSTTO, which is a little way out of town. By the way, I'm getting fairly used to driving in Spain now. I always thought the hard part would be just remembering to stay on the right side of the road, but that part's actually the easy bit. The hard part is remembering to recognise the important bits like traffic lights, junction markings and pedestrian crossings, because they just look different to their counterparts back home, and so they don't trigger an automatic reaction for me. I'm still in that phase where I have to be consciously looking for them. I imagine that will yield to further practice. Anyway, this is COSTTO. We have to put €1 in the trolley to unlock it, but we'll get that back at the end. And as I've explained before, I'm taking a trolley because one of my hands is going to be occupied carrying a camera. Before we go in, I must just show you this. It does say prices without competence. Accidental verbal self-annihilation. This is actually a bit of a mistranslation of the Spanish phrase precios sin competencia, which literally means prices without competition, or a little bit less literally, unbeatable prices. But competencia is a false friend for the English word competence, and that Spanish phrase has been naively translated as prices without competence here. This has been there on the store for years. I wonder if anyone's told them. There is quite an interesting array of unfamiliar brands and labels, but underneath all of that, a lot of the actual foodstuffs are the same or very similar to what I'm familiar with from back home. Flour is a possible ingredient, and there's a great value option available here. But on this challenge I'm choosing to minimise effort because it's not my own kitchen, and the daytime temperature when I'm recording this is quite warm, so I don't want to be in there cooking and baking for hours. There are some remarkably good value packs of dried legumes. These would be superb for a longer challenge, and the prices here are better than their UK counterparts. I chose a big jar of cooked lentils. Not quite as great value as the dry packs, but less effort to prepare. Among the cheapest items in the canned meats were these little foil tins of pâté. That's a possibility, but I think I want to keep looking. And I think it might be sardines. Now, these are a bit of a common item in this series, but they really hit a sweet spot in terms of flavour, nutrition and value. And there was a choice of different varieties at this price point. And I'm not actually buying this item, but these tins of tomatoes made me chuckle. They look like regular tinned tomatoes when you stand back, but obviously it's a bulk catering tin. It just tickled me a bit that it's the same proportions, even on the labels, as the regular tins, just all scaled up. Now, onto the chiller cabinet, and there are quite a few options here for some protein and flavour, although a lot of these attractive packs are more packaging than product. But this pack of chorizo looks like it might be okay. Similar story with the cheese, some nicely priced packs, but looking inside, some of them only contain a very few paper-thin slices. I allowed myself to go a little bit up in the pricing and found a pack of grated cheese that looks like it has a decent amount in there for the price. Over in the bakery section, I think there's one very obvious choice, so I chose the obvious choice. I was going to get a bulb of garlic, but they seemed suspiciously light, and I think they might not be that great inside. I got one big tomato and one onion. Wonyon. So that's 7 items, one more to choose, and there were some possibilities in the pasta section. Lots of interesting small pasta like this tiny macaroni, but I got some straight pasta instead. Now to the checkout, and like I said, you get your coin back when you chain up the trolley at the end. So then a short drive home again to my mum's house where we'll have a look at the haul. Shopping is complete. Here is the haul. To begin, one large onion. That cost me 28€. One large tomato, 47 cents. A tin of sardines, 85 grams drained weight in escabeche, which is like a vinegar sauce, so it's kind of pickled. Those were 89 cents. A jar of cooked lentils, 400 grams, 89 cents. A packet of pasta. It's not quite spaghetti, it's I don't know what variety of pasta this is. It's like little ribbons anyway. It's a bit like linguine maybe. This was on special. There was a 250 gram pack for this price, but also this is special with 400 grams, and this was 89 cents. A pack of sliced chorizo is 60 grams. That was 89 cents. A pack of grated cheese, 150 grams, €1.05. And a white pan barra for 49 cents. So that's the haul. We'll go and add some spices and herbs and sauces to that, and then we've got to make something out of this. We've got to make 3 somethings out of this. My herb for this cooking challenge is going to be rosemary. It doesn't seem any point buying rosemary or using it dried out of the cupboard when I can just come out here and pick some. So we'll have a little wander up this valley. I've brought you here many times before in previous videos. It's very, very dry and parched at the moment. So I don't think there's going to be very many flowers to point at today, but we'll see what we can find. So let's find a nice looking specimen of rosemary. They're all looking quite dry. But we'll find there's a nice green looking one up there. That'll do. So we'll have some nice sprigs of rosemary from this plant here. Oh, rabbit. Oh, and a hoopoe. Scientific name, Upupa epops. Right, rosemary. Romero. I think that's probably plenty. Lunch is going to be something fairly simple. We'll get some of this nice bread. I think maybe, well, we might just save the ends actually. So we'll have the middle section of this bread here. I'll split that in half down the middle. And that's going to go on a baking tray, ready to go in the oven. Lovely fluffy bread. I'm just going to put the oven on to preheat. Next, these sardines. Now, well, I don't have my Brabantia can opener with me, so we are going to be forced to use a can opener. I'm not going to use all of that escabeche, but I'm not going to throw it away either, so that juice we'll take out and just reserve. Enabling me to carefully remove the pull tab top. There we go. Those can come out onto there. A little taste of this sauce. Not quite as acidic as I expected. I thought that would be more of a pickly type of thing, but anyway, nice little sauce. So, sardines. If you can hear a dog puffing and panting in the background, that's my mum's dog. It keeps coming in to greet me. I think you will have a little drizzle of that sauce on each of those. And then the sardine pieces I'm just going to break up along the back there after deboning. And like that. So just break those up. I'm breaking them up on purpose because I want other things to go on there. Those bits I will probably save for the dogs. Next, not all of this onion. I think we'll just have a little slice off the side of this onion. Slice up some thin. So we're also going to have a little chunk of this tomato, similarly, just a bit off the edge like that. Those remainders I'll wrap and put in the fridge. Not a fan of these knives or glass cutting boards, but not my kitchen, so using what's available. A little bit of tomato on each one, and then little bits of onion as well. Pepper, black pepper, some of my fresh rosemary leaves. I'll just pull them off here and try to chop these up really small. So I think we might use scissors for that. Rosemary, I'm going to snip on over the top like that. And cutting the leaves will release some of those aromas. So this is going on kind of a bit like ground pepper sized grains. Tiny bit of salt, not much because the sardines have got salt and the next ingredient has got salt, which is some of this cheese. So you've got a tear strip. No. Apologies for the sudden drop in light. I've lost my video light. Anyway, I'll try and get that charged for when we're back in business, but a little bit of cheese on top. Right, loads of cheese left. Back in the fridge, and then that's going to go straight in the oven now. Okay, well, there we go. The cheese didn't melt as much as I hoped it would. That is always a potential problem with ready grated cheese. They put things in there to stop it clumping, and that often results in it not melting very well. Anyway, that's lunch. Apologise for the bad lighting. We've lost the video light, but anyway, it's tostada con sardinas, I suppose. So, just going to give that a little taste then. As you might imagine, it's lovely. It's nice to have the sardines warm through. The onions, the tomatoes, yeah, they're all just flavours that go nicely together. Okay, dinner time, and dinner is going to be 2 courses. We're going to start with a soup, which is going to be a bit like a dal because it's going to be mostly lentils. And my spice allowance is going to be curry powder. And I'm going to follow that with some linguine with a tomatoey sauce. So my sauce allowance is going to be some Frito. This is a carton that's got maybe about that much left in it. So just a little bit of Frito, because we've got fresh tomato and fresh onion as well. So first things first, I'll get the soup put together. So this onion, just going to chop up the rest of this. And I'm going to save some of this because we'll have some raw onion garnish in the soup. But most of it, I'm just going to coarsely dice. I'll get that in a pan and get that frying. So over here, my oil allowance, my tablespoonful of oil in a frying pan. In goes the onion. Camera setup is a bit makeshift here. You're just going to have to forgive me for that. And I'm going to fry that onion until it's caramelized. Meanwhile, over here, maybe about half of this jar of lentils. And I'm going to mash them up a bit. Just with a potato masher. Not completely, but just to break some of them up. Lid on that for the moment. So some of these onions I'm just going to transfer into a smaller pan for reasons. That one's just going to go on the heat. Honestly, the handle is heavier than the pan. Not ideal. So once we've got those sizzling in that pan, a bit of curry powder in there. I'm just going to fry that curry powder to bring out the flavour. And then once that's had a little bit of a sizzle, just a little bit of water in there, just to deglaze all of that curry and onion off the pan. And then that is going to go into the pot for the dal. Those onions can go back on. On the back here I've got a pot of water I'm just heating up, ready for the pasta. But I'm going to take that off now, so the soup can go on. Meanwhile, over here, this tomato. Again, I'm going to save a piece for garnishes and things. That can go with the onion. The rest of the tomato is going to get diced up. That'll go into my pasta sauce. So it's just going to be diced up into small-ish chunks. That's going into my pasta sauce. Meanwhile, this bit of frito can go in here. And what I'm going to do is just put some water in that, just to loosen up what's left in there. Okay, that's going to come off the heat now. And then the pasta water can go back on. Meanwhile, at the back, the soup is bubbling. I need to find a spoon. I better just take that off while I find a spoon. So that pasta sauce will need to come back to the heat just to cook those tomatoes a bit. And then this chorizo. Now this is not your cooking chorizo. This is meant to be for a charcuterie board or sandwiches or something like that. But we were driven primarily by price and availability. So I'm going to cut this into nice thin strips like this, and this is going to go in my pasta sauce, which is here. What I wouldn't give for a tripod. Right, that's looking a little bit dry, so it's also just going to have a splash of water just to loosen it for the moment. You probably will end up reducing that back down. So at the moment, the only salt in here is whatever was in the frito and in the chorizo, but we'll give it a taste in a moment. But it could do with a grind of black pepper. I'm just going to let that cook, simmer gently, and some of the smoky flavours will come out of this chorizo and infuse into the sauce. In fact, I'm just going to put that on the back burner and go back to the soup. So the soup just needs bringing up to temperature. I've found a wooden spoon now. We'll have a little taste. That's all right. What I forgot to say was that I meant to also put just a few of these lentils also in the pasta sauce. the soup is more or less done now, but I'm just going to reduce that a bit. Right, pasta water's gone back on. We're just going to cook some pasta. About a teaspoonful of salt in there, and the pasta goes in. It's a 400 gram pack. I want probably just under half of this pack for 2 people. So I reckon about that much. Everything else is coming together. While the pasta is cooking, I'm just going to quickly do the garnish for the soup. And that is going to be this bit of reserved tomato and the reserved onion. Just some little shavings of the reserved raw onion. Probably only about that much of that. Oh, blooming flies, this heat. Okay, pasta is just a little bit on the firm side of al dente, but that's fine because it's going to go into that sauce now. It doesn't matter that I'm picking up a little bit of the water with it. That is going to just give that sauce a bit of gloss. So, okay, that's just going to sit in that sauce now and infuse while we have our soup. Right, that bit of spare tomato is going to go in the pasta sauce. Okay, first course, which is just a little bowl of lentil soup. We could have made much more, of course. So there's half a jar of lentils back there, but just wanted a little appetizer. And that's going to be garnished with some of the raw tomato, some of the raw onion, and there was left over from lunch some of that sauce from the sardines. So a little drizzle of that on top. Right there. Okay, so that's my starter. Lentil dal with onion and tomato. Right, so main course is this pasta and sauce. So we'll just get that dished up. And again, we could have made more pasta and served more people. So sauce, we'll get a good generous portion of sauce on top. Presentation leaving something to be desired. And then we've got cheese. Can go on top of that. Now I was thinking about doing some, there's a bit of bread left. I was going to do a bit of cheesy bread to go on the side, but I just didn't get round to it. So anyway, sprinkle of cheese on top. And there is probably half the cheese left. So we could maybe make another meal. Mashed lentils on toast with a cheesy topping. Something like that. Anyway, do you know what? I meant to put rosemary in this sauce and I forgot. Oh well, it's the heat getting to me. Okay, so the pasta and the chorizo and tomato sauce. I actually rather like that. The flavour of the chorizo is quite light, but it's got a sweet smokiness to it. And actually the lentils in there are quite good. There's just a few lentils in there, just to, you know, bit of variety of texture, a bit more protein. And it works. Is it all right, Mum?
It's very nice, but it's a very large portion.
My mum eats like a mouse. Right, okay, I think we're going to go back to studio shrimp now for the wrap-up. So, conclusions, starting with rating the dishes and pricing per serving. I'm pretty happy with the sardine tostada, and for the first time in this video series, my perceptions of the food are being corroborated by my mum. Not necessarily a completely unbiased judge, of course, but both of us really enjoyed these open toasted sandwiches. I think the only thing wrong was that grated cheese didn't melt all that well, probably because of whatever they add to it to keep it from clumping in the bag. But nevertheless, it did work. It was a nice sandwich. The wild rosemary was a good flavour in there as well. I think this one gets 9 out of 10. The simple lentil dal, I think this would have been pretty ordinary on its own, but the garnish of raw onion and tomato really did lift it, as well as that little drizzle of leftover escabeche from the sardine tin. My mum ate her whole portion, which I wasn't sure would happen. Of course, I ate and enjoyed all of mine too. 8 out of 10. If I had something green and leafy like spinach to put in this, it would have been a 10. The pasta with tomato, onion and chorizo sauce, everything on the plate was delicious, but I could really kick myself for not adding some rosemary into this. By the time I realised it was too late. For this reason alone, it's only going to get a 6 out of 10. It would have been 8 with rosemary, but for a 10 it would also need garlic, which we just didn't have available anyway. The following morning, outside of the context of the challenge, I finished the crust of bread and the cheese for my breakfast, topped with some cherry tomatoes, which were obviously not part of the previous day's shopping. The day after that, the other half of the jar of lentils was used up in a lentil and chicken curry, which I forgot to take a picture of. Lessons learned from this. I think the shopping was easier than back at home. I know euros and pounds aren't exactly the same thing, but I feel like there was a larger range and choice of low-ish priced items than I normally see in England. Some of this might just be my perception. Where everything's different, I'm looking at things in a different way. The hard part of all of this was just the cooking and video recording. It wasn't practical for me to carry all the kit that I normally use at home, in particular a tripod, so that was all a bit makeshift, and that did put me on edge a bit. Unfamiliar tools and implements I can usually deal with, but I did have to slow down for those serrated, never needs sharpening kitchen knives, as they have a really nasty tendency to veer off course when slicing, and I've had a bad cut that way a long time ago. I would have preferred a regular blade and a wooden board, but it's not my kitchen, so my preferences are kind of irrelevant here. Here's the nutritional breakdown of the total haul. Not actually bad, I would say. We're not attempting to hit anyone's specific nutritional intakes here. The objective was just to make 3 dishes, and in that respect, all 3 of these dishes could probably have been stretched to serve 4 portions. For example, that bread could just have been quartered, and the sardines supplemented with some mashed lentils. That would serve 4 people as a very light lunch or a very generous snack. There was half a jar of lentils left over at the end, so if I'd used all of those in the dal, it would have made it up to 4 servings easily. And maybe with just a little bit more allowance of frito and finer slicing of that chorizo, and of course the rosemary. How could I have forgotten the rosemary? That sauce, I think, could have been stretched across the whole of that 400-gram pack of pasta for 4 plates. So we could have served 4 people, not for a day, but for 3 dishes for 4 people, using basically just that €5.85 of shopping plus the allowances. I think that's not bad. And that, I think, brings us to the end, so I hope this has been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.